They told us the land was untouched, no neighbors for miles, no roads, just endless trees and quiet. It was supposed to be the perfect place to escape, to start over after everything that happened. The kind of place where the world's noise fades away and you can finally breathe. But on the first night, as the sun dipped beneath the horizon, something began to grow. Not just the moss and the wildflowers, but something darker, something that didn't belong. We buried her beneath the biggest tree on the property. I remember the weight of the soil as we covered her, the way the roots seemed to reach out like hands trying to pull her back. It felt wrong even then, like we were planting more than just a body. That night, I thought I heard crying soft and distant coming from the woods. The kind of crying that curls into your bones and refuses to leave. By the second night, the air felt heavier. The breeze carried whispers that weren't quite words, and the shadows seemed to shift just out of sight. When I looked at the tree where we laid her to rest, I saw something impossible, an impression like the faint outline of a face pressed into the bark. I blinked, convinced it was a trick of the fading light, but it stayed there, watching now. The tree is growing faster than it should, its branches twisting in unnatural shapes, and every morning, I swear the face becomes clearer and more defined. Like whatever is beneath is trying to reach through the earth, trying to be seen again. I don't know what we disturbed, but I'm terrified to find out. I'm telling you this because I can't keep it in anymore. You need to hear the warning before it's too late. Whatever you do, don't get too close to the tree. Don't listen for the whispers. And whatever you do, don't look too long at the face that's growing there. I haven't told anyone this before. Not my family, not the neighbors, not even the police. I don't know why. Maybe it's the fear of sounding crazy, or the shame of what happened. But mostly, it's because I was too afraid to face it alone. But now, I just need someone to listen. Someone who doesn't think I'm making it up. Someone who understands that sometimes things happen that you just can't explain. You seem like someone who's seen strange things too, or at least, someone who doesn't dismiss the idea that the world isn't always as it seems. That's why I'm telling you this story, because if I keep it inside, it'll eat me alive. I spent nights awake, in that cabin, in the woods, with no signal and nothing but the sound of the trees for company. Creepy noises would echo around the house, footsteps when no one was there, whispers that drifted through the walls, and a feeling of being watched, always watched, by something I couldn't see. Sleepless nights became the norm. I'd lie in bed, heart pounding, waiting for the next noise, the next shadow that moved just out of sight. I started questioning everything about my sanity, my memories, even my own eyes. Was I imagining it? Was it the isolation? Or was something real, something ancient, lingering in the darkness? There's a presence there, I'm sure of it. It's not just in my head. And whatever it is, it's tied to that tree, the one where we buried our daughter. I don't know what it wants, or why it's there, but I feel it, especially when the wind blows through the branches and carries those faint, haunting whispers. It's like the tree itself is alive, watching, waiting. I'm begging you, please promise me you won't try to find it. Don't go looking for the cabin, the tree, or whatever it is that's growing beneath it. It's not safe, and I fear it would only pull you in deeper than I was ever willing to go. I don't want anyone else to get caught in this nightmare. I'm telling you this now because I can't hold it in anymore. If sharing it keeps me grounded, if it stops the voices from swallowing me whole for just a little longer, then it's worth it. Just listen, please, and don't ignore the warnings. Some things are better left alone. The cabin sat at the edge of the forest, a lone structure weathered by years of harsh winds and endless rain. Its wooden boards were warped and cracked, peeling paint barely clinging to the siding like fading memories. The roof sagged in places, and the windows, framed in splintered wood, were tinted with grime and dust, casting dull reflections of the surrounding trees. The porch creaked with every step, as if warning visitors to keep their distance. It was the kind of place that felt forgotten by time, a relic stranded on the border of civilization and wilderness, swallowed slowly by the relentless encroachment of nature. Despite its isolation, the cabin was not unknown to locals. Stories swirled around it like the fog that often blanketed the forest at dawn. They said the place was cursed, or haunted, or worse, some said it was, where the earth itself had been tainted by something dark. Whispered rumors warned that those who stayed too long would feel eyes watching them, unseen and unblinking. Some even claimed the forest around the cabin shifted, bending reality just enough to trap anyone who tried to leave too late at night. These tales were dismissed by most as superstition, folklore passed down to keep children from wandering too far, but those who believed them avoided the place, their hushed voices dropping when the cabin's name came up. When I first arrived, I thought the stories were just local color. The cabin was exactly what I needed, far from the chaos, from people, from the noise. But it didn't take long for me to realize that something wasn't right. On my first evening, as the sun dipped beneath the tree line, the air grew unnervingly still. The usual chorus of birds and insects fell silent, as if the forest itself was holding its breath. The silence pressed in around me, heavy and unnatural. Inside the cabin, subtle things began to unsettle me. The old grandfather clock in the corner stopped ticking at precisely midnight each night, no matter how many times I wound it. The hands froze, casting long shadows on the faded wallpaper, stubborn against the passage of time. Mirrors seemed to betray me. Two reflections caught fleeting movements that vanished when I looked again. Once, I thought I saw a face staring back at me from the glass, pale and twisted, but when I blinked, there was nothing but my own tired eyes. Outside, the wildlife behaved strangely. Birds avoided the trees nearby, their absence marked by a deafening quiet that made the forest feel empty and hollow. Even the wind seemed different, carrying whispers too faint to understand, brushing past with a cold touch that lingered on my skin. At night, the shadows deepened, shapes shifting just beyond the reach of the cabin's weak light. I could feel a presence watching me, unseen but undeniable, a weight pressing down from the darkness beyond the windows. Neighbors rarely came near, and those who did offered little more than wary glances and vague warnings. One old man muttered about the watchers in the woods and advised me not to stay after dark. His eyes darted nervously, as if fearing something lurking behind me. A woman from town spoke of strange lights flickering near the tree where the cabin stood, lights that moved too erratically to be anything natural. No one explained what those lights were, and no one wanted to say more. As days passed, the oppressive feeling grew stronger. The cabin no longer felt like a refuge, but a trap. Every sound was amplified, the creak of the floorboards, the rustle of leaves, the distant howl of something unidentifiable. Sometimes I caught glimpses of movement in the corner of my eye, shapes slipping behind trees, figures disappearing into the fog. My sleep was plagued with restless dreams, fragments of faces and voices that didn't belong to me, calling out from the darkness with urgent, indecipherable messages. Despite everything, I couldn't leave. Something about the cabin, about that tree, held me in place. I felt drawn to it, like a moth circling a flame, even though every instinct screamed for me to run. The line between reality and nightmare blurred, and the boundaries of time seemed to warp. Clocks would stop and start again at odd hours. The sun would set too quickly, or linger longer than it should. It was as if the cabin existed out of sync with the world, caught in a strange limbo where the past and present intertwined. The tree where we buried our daughter stood in the clearing just beyond the porch. Its twisted branches reached upward, blackened and scarred, and strange growths crawled along its bark, like veins pulsing beneath the surface. At times, I thought I saw shapes forming in the knots of the wood faces that twisted in silent agony or watched with hollow eyes. It was impossible to look away, yet terrifying to stare too long. In the days that followed, the cabin's eerie atmosphere seeped into every corner of my life. Even when I left, the feeling of being watched clung to me like a shadow. Phones lost, signal, GPS failed, and radio static filled the airwaves. The woods felt alive, hungry for something lost or waiting to be found. Every night, the silence grew heavier, broken only by the occasional, inexplicable knock at the door or the slow creak of something moving just beyond my sight. This place isn't just a cabin in the woods. It's something else entirely, a place where time fractures and the veil between worlds thins. A place that holds secrets better left buried beneath the roots of that twisted tree. And as much as I want to escape, I'm starting to realize that some things, once awakened, refuse to be forgotten. The nights began quietly enough, but that silence always felt like the calm before a storm. On the third evening, as darkness draped the cabin in thick shadows, I heard the softest knocking, rhythmic but irregular, coming from the far side of the house. I froze, straining to pinpoint its source. The windows were shut tight, the doors locked hours ago. When I finally summoned the courage to check, there was nothing, no footprints, no sign of anyone or anything that could have made the sound. Still, the knocking persisted intermittently over the next few nights, always when I was alone and least expecting it. It was as if something wanted to get in, or maybe to make sure I knew it was there. Sleep became a stranger. Every time I closed my eyes, the knocking would return, weaving into my dreams with a sinister rhythm. I dreamt of standing in the cabin's living room, shadows flickering in the corners. As the knocking grew louder, louder, until it filled my ears and chest. Then I would wake, heart pounding, the sound echoing faintly in the silence. The boundary between my dreams and reality began to blur, and sometimes I wasn't sure which was which. That persistent knocking seemed to follow me through the night, and even into the day. A haunting refrain I couldn't escape. Doors, too, betrayed me. Despite the locks, I found them slightly ajar more than once. Once when I had closed them myself, bolted tight. It was subtle at first, just a crack of space that shouldn't have been there. But with each passing night, the doors opened wider, as if pushed by invisible hands. I would wake to the creaking sound, that unsettling groan of aged wood resisting some unknown force. The air would grow colder, heavier, the hairs on my arms standing on end. I never saw anyone or anything, but the evidence was undeniable. The doors were being opened from the inside, by nothing. One night, as I lay in bed, whispers began to seep into my dreams. The voices were faint, fragmented, like echoes from another world. They spoke in hushed tones, repeating my own thoughts or warnings I'd never voiced aloud. At times, I heard my own name called softly, a voice both familiar and alien. These whispers followed me after waking, haunting the silence of the cabin. They became a constant murmur in the back of my mind, a relentless reminder that I was never truly alone. Even the furniture betrayed the stillness of the cabin. Chairs shifted positions overnight, tables moved as if rearranged by unseen hands. On more than one occasion, I awoke to find the rocking chair in the living room gently swaying, though no breeze touched the room. The floorboards creaked beneath, heavy, invisible footsteps, and objects were inexplicably displaced, the weight of presence pressing down on everything. I would enter the cabin after leaving a room to find things out of place. Small but unnerving signs that I was being watched, that something was here, moving just beyond my vision. Throughout it all, a subtle pattern emerged. The sounds, movements, and whispers happened most frequently near the tree where our daughter was buried. It was as though the disturbance originated there, pulsing outward like ripples in water. The tree itself seemed to throb with an unnatural energy, its branches swaying when the air was still, shadows lengthening and twisting in impossible shapes. The ground around it shifted subtly, as if something beneath was stirring, trying to break free. The nights grew longer, darker, and the feeling of dread settled deep in my bones. No matter how tightly I tried to hold on to normalcy, the cabin and the woods around it seemed to pull me deeper into their secret. Every creak, every whisper, every unexplained movement was a thread in a web tightening around me. I wasn't just a visitor here. I was becoming part of something far older, something that had been waiting in the shadows all along. Despite my growing fear, I couldn't leave. The pull of that tree, of whatever was tied to it, kept me anchored. I found myself drawn outside in the dead of night, staring at the bark, twisted with unnatural patterns, listening to the faint cries that seemed to come from the earth itself. Sleep eluded me, replaced by a restless vigilance that wore me thin. The line between waking and dreaming blurred until I didn't know which world I belonged to anymore. It was during one of those sleepless nights that the knocking time was louder, more urgent. I followed the sound to the base of the tree, where the earth had shifted again, revealing a dark hollow beneath the roots. I leaned in, heart hammering, and the whispers grew louder, surrounding me, wrapping around my mind like a cold fog. Then the ground beneath me moved, and something unseen reached out a grasp that chilled me to the core. From that moment, the disturbances intensified. Shadows stretched and flickered in unnatural ways. Doors slammed with invisible force. The whispers turned to cries. The cries to screams barely contained by the silence. The cabin itself seemed alive, breathing, watching, waiting, and I realized the truth I had tried to ignore. The presence was not just around the tree, it was inside me now. Part of me, bound by something I couldn't escape. The nights stretched endlessly, each one a torment of sound and shadow, of knocking and whispering, of doors opening to reveal nothing but darkness. The cabin, the tree, the buried secret, they had become my prison, and I was losing the battle. The once peaceful woods were now a twisted labyrinth of fear and despair, and I was trapped in the heart of it all, watching the impossible unfold as the thing with her face grew from the roots below. And so I wait, trapped between waking and dreaming, haunted by the presence that watches and waits just beyond the edge of light. Every night, the knocking returns. A reminder that some things buried beneath the earth refuse to stay dead, and some faces never forget. The night I found the journal, everything changed. I had been pacing the cabin, desperate for answers, when my foot caught on something loose beneath the old, creaking floorboards. Kneeling down, I pried up the weathered wood and uncovered a small, dust-covered, leather-bound book, its pages yellowed and brittle with age. The cover was embossed with strange symbols I couldn't recognize at first, twisted, looping shapes that seemed to writhe under the flickering candlelight. I hesitated before opening it, knowing deep down that whatever secrets it held might shatter what little peace I had left. The journal belonged to a man named Elias Harrow, a settler from over a century ago, who once lived on this very land. His handwriting was cramped but urgent, each entry painting a grim picture of life at the cabin and of the darkness lurking just beyond the trees. Elias wrote of an ancient presence, something older than the forest itself, that fed off grief and sorrow. He warned of a curse that bound the land, a force that twisted and consumed those who disturbed the earth in certain ways. The more I read, the more I understood that what we had buried beneath the tree was not just our daughter. It was a trigger, a link to something terrible that had been waiting for centuries. Elias described how the townsfolk had long known of this presence, but had chosen silence out of fear. They spoke in hushed tones of a guardian spirit, a watcher who punished those who defied its boundaries. The journal detailed how the tree itself was no ordinary tree, but a vessel, a living prison for whatever entity haunted these woods. The roots tangled with ancient magic, feeding on the lives and memories of those buried beneath it. I could almost feel Elias's despair as he chronicled his futile attempts to protect his family and land. His last entries were frantic, his words bleeding into one another, describing voices whispering from the soil and shadows moving just beyond sight. Compelled by the journal, I began searching the cabin for more clues, and that's when I noticed the carvings on the wall in the corner of the main room faint, almost erased by time but unmistakable now. The symbols matched those on the journal's cover, arranged in a circular pattern around a crude depiction of the tree and a face twisted in agony. The message was clear, a warning to leave the place untouched or suffer the consequences. There were scratches and stains on the wood, signs of desperate attempts to erase or perhaps contain whatever was imprisoned there. That night, I finally understood what I was up against. As I sat by the fire, the air thickened and the temperature plummeted. Shadows lengthened and shifted unnaturally, taking forms that flickered at the edge of my vision. The whispers from the dreams grew louder, more distinct. They were no longer fragmented murmurs, but clear voices, pleading, accusing, warning. Suddenly, I saw it. A figure, not quite human, emerged from the darkness outside the window, its eyes gleaming with an otherworldly light. It was watching me, waiting. I felt its gaze burrow into my soul, ancient and patient, like the forest itself had come alive to judge me. The encounter shattered any remaining doubts. This was no mere haunting or restless spirit. It was something primordial, a guardian of the land's darkest secrets. It was tied to the tree, to our daughter's grave, and to the blood that had been spilled here for generations. The presence was alive, aware, and it was angry. But more than anger, there was sorrow and hunger. A twisted desire to consume and bind all who dared to cross its path. I realized then that the knocking, the doors opening, the whispers were all signs of this ancient watcher making its presence known, testing my resolve, drawing me closer into its web. It was as if the land itself was breathing, pulsating with a dark energy that wanted to claim me as it had claimed so many before. The journal's final entry ended with a desperate plea, a warning to anyone who found the cabin, urging them to leave the tree alone and to bury their own grief somewhere, far away from these cursed woods. But I couldn't leave yet. The presence had entwined itself with me, and the weight of what I'd uncovered pressed down like the roots beneath the tree, dragging me deeper into a nightmare I was only beginning to understand. And as the night grew colder and the shadows danced, I knew one thing for certain: whatever was watching was not done with me yet. I thought leaving would be simple. Pack up, get in the car, and drive away from this cursed place. But the forest had other plans. That morning, as dawn broke pale and gray over the twisted treetops, I loaded my things with a hollow sense of hope. The air was unnervingly still, as if the woods themselves were holding their breath. I glanced one last time at the tree where our daughter was buried, its gnarled roots clutching the earth like the fingers of some unseen hand. The drive out should have been straightforward. The narrow dirt road I'd taken to get here felt different, though longer, as if it stretched endlessly through an unchanging maze of shadows and silence. The landmarks I remembered were gone or twisted beyond recognition. The map on my phone refused to load, the screen flickering like a dying flame. Every turn I took only led me deeper into the woods, not out. It was like the forest was folding in on itself, a living labyrinth designed to trap me forever. Hours passed, or was it days? Time lost all meaning. The sun hung motionless, neither rising nor setting, bathing the woods in an unchanging twilight. I stopped counting how many times I passed the same dead tree, the same broken fence post, the same faded sign warning "turn back." My breaths came ragged and shallow. The sounds around me warped. The rustling of leaves echoed like whispered voices, low and mournful, calling my name but never quite forming words. One night, if I can call it that, I saw her. The girl. Not as she was, but something else. Something warped and unnatural. Her face seemed to grow from the tree itself, pale bark for skin, dark hollow eyes, weeping sap, branches twisting into the shape of a smile that wasn't quite human. She reached out, fingers like brittle twigs, beckoning me closer with a haunting familiarity I couldn't ignore. I wanted to run, to scream, but my legs felt rooted to the spot. At that moment, I realized I wasn't trying to escape the forest. I was being pulled into it, absorbed, like the soil drinking rain. The boundary between me and the woods began to blur. My reflection in a nearby pool of stagnant water wasn't quite right. Eyes too wide, smile too sharp, skin mottled like bark. I heard the whispers again, not distant this time, but inside my head, weaving promises and threats, pulling me further into madness. I tried to fight, to cling to who I was, but the presence was patient. It seeped into my bones, filling the spaces where fear and hope once lived. The tree's roots no longer just gripped the earth, they reached toward me. Tendrils of shadow slipping under my skin, connecting me to the ancient sorrow buried beneath. My body felt heavier, slower, as if becoming part of the forest's dark heart. Sometimes I wonder if I ever really existed outside those woods. If the person telling you this story is me, or just a fragment, a shadow left behind by something far older and crueler. The boundary between living and lost is thinner here than anywhere I've known. I no longer know if I am escaping or descending. The forest doesn't just trap bodies, it traps souls. And so, I stay, watching, waiting, becoming. The tree grows, taller, the face more defined with every passing night, as does the shadow of me that now lingers beneath its boughs. Sometimes, when the wind is just right, you might hear my voice among the rustling leaves, a warning, or perhaps an invitation. If you ever come across that tree, that forest, that place where light doesn't reach, listen carefully, don't touch the earth too deeply. Don't try to run, because the woods don't let go, they never have. And if you listen closely, you might hear me whispering from the roots, telling you the truth about what happens when you bury more than just a body beneath the soil. I haven't been able to sleep since that night, since the last time I tried to leave the forest and found myself trapped in its endless maze. The exhaustion weighs on me, but it's not just the lack of rest. It's the way my mind never truly settles, always on edge, as if the shadows themselves are waiting just outside my eyelids. Every time I close my eyes, I see that twisted tree, the one where we buried her, and where something else took root. I see her face, not as I remember it, but warped and strange, growing from the bark like some grotesque blossom. It's a sight that haunts the edges of every dream, slipping into my thoughts and refusing to be silenced. And then there's the sound. I still hear it every night, soft, almost too quiet to be real, but unmistakably there. A rustling in the leaves, a faint whisper, something just beyond hearing. It's like the forest speaks in a language I almost understand, but never quite grasp. The voices call my name, remind me of promises I didn't want to make, and threats I can't escape. Sometimes, when the wind shifts just right, I swear, I hear her laughter, childlike, but chilling, drifting through the trees, echoing in the hollow spaces of my mind. People ask if I'm sure it was real, if it was all just in my head. I wish I could say yes, that I was imagining it, that the woods were just playing tricks on a tired mind. But the marks on my skin, the strange growths beneath my nails, the way my reflection sometimes flickers and shifts, those are proof. Something followed me back, something that changed me, and maybe, in some way, became a part of me. I look in the mirror now, and I don't always recognize the person staring back. There's a shadow there, a lingering presence that wasn't mine before. I tried to shake it off, to live a normal life, but the woods don't let go that easily. They're patient, always patient, waiting for the moment I slip up and let the darkness pull me back. If you ever find that place, the cursed forest, the tree with the face, that shouldn't exist, please, don't stay. Don't try to understand it or make peace with it. Burn it down if you have to. Destroy everything tied to it. Because once the forest touches you, even just a little, it never truly lets you go. It waits beneath your skin, in your breath, in the spaces between your thoughts, And if you hear that faint rustling in the dark, that whisper just beyond your hearing, don't listen. Don't answer. Just run. Because whatever grew from that tree isn't done yet. It's waiting for someone else to bury, for someone else to become part of the soil. I'm telling you this because I can't keep it inside anymore. I need someone to know the truth, to remember what happened, so maybe no one else makes the mistake I did. I hope you'll listen, and I hope you'll believe me. But above all, I hope you stay far away from that place where the daughter we buried became something else. This is my warning, whispered on a night that never ends. Take it seriously. Because some stories aren't meant to be told, they're meant to keep you from walking the same dark path I did. Have you ever felt like something was watching you, even when no one else was around? Maybe you've heard strange noises in the dead of night, or caught a glimpse of something out of the corner of your eye that didn't belong. If you have, you're not alone. I want to hear your stories, every unsettling moment, every whisper in the dark. You can share them in the comments below. I read every single one. But a warning, from someone who's been too close to the darkness. Don't go looking for what you don't understand. Some things are better left buried, forgotten in the quiet shadows where they can't reach you. If you ever stumble upon a place that feels wrong, like the one I'm telling you about, run. Don't stay. Don't look back. And whatever you do, don't listen to the next story alone. Some tales have a way of slipping into your mind, pulling you deeper than you ever intended to go. So please be careful out there. Keep your doors locked, your lights on, and remember that some eyes are watching even when you think you're safe. If you dare to share your experience, I'm here, listening. But just know, some stories don't end when you turn off the lights. They follow you home.